Today. To home. Buy one, get three. Good afternoon, everyone. We are here with our live today, the 3rd of October. We are going to continue our topic of narrative writing. Hopefully you can see. Let me see if we can see the board. Yes, excellent over magnificent. We can see the board. So we're doing our topic of narrative writing. The objectives for today is to understand sensory imagery, learn techniques to create our different types of imagery, and create description using these different types of imagery. So yesterday we learned that you can create descriptive writing through the use of specific words or descriptive words, whether it be descriptive nouns, which are more specific nouns. So instead of saying a shoe, you will specify and say whether it's a slipper, a wedge, a pink colorful Crocs with lots of different decals all over the Crocs, Cornelia, whether it's a stiletto heels. We learned that you can have specific verbs. So instead of just saying stood, you can give a specific verb. You can say she slouched, or she poised, or she was akimbo. How many of you know that old person word akimbo? Kenila, what's akimbo? Yes, hand on the hip, akimbo. Right? And the specific use of adjectives to modify those nouns. So instead of saying stink, we can use putrid. Instead of saying smells good, we can say aromatic, etc. Instead of using adverbs like very, we can enhance our verbs to specific adverbs like hastily, right? So instead of saying that she walked into the classroom, you can say she hastily stormed into the classroom, and then you can get a different image. So we learned about descriptive words yesterday. We also learned about literary devices, which are special comparative devices that we use to get the element or the essence or the aspect of the description that we want to come out to create, to evoke, so we can stimulate the imagination of our reader so they will know, well, okay, when I saw a pigsty the first time, it was smelly and it was messy, so when the person said the bedroom is like a pigsty, I know exactly what they're talking about, etc. So the other aspect of descriptive writing that a lot of people overlook is the imagery. Right? And we get the word imagery, if you can see image here, from imagination. Imagery, imagination is from the same root word, right? Where you're trying to create in the mind of someone a specific impression, okay? And there are different ways that we create images in the minds of our audience or our readers. So here we have visual imagery. Visual imagery describes what you see, right? So visual imagery is describing what you see. So when you're describing the setting, you want to describe all of the things that you see. You want to describe things like color. You want to describe things like shape. You want to describe things like form. Right? You want to describe them in their state. If something is old, or it is new, or it is well kept, or something that is dilapidated, all of that, their state, right? So you focus on describing things that you see. Now in visual imagery, you can use your descriptive words, you can use those literary devices, you can use those adjectives and those adverbs and so on. But it's all about giving yourself a description about seeing. When you are describing and you're using visual imagery, you can't just splash in anything that you see. You have to have a formula or a method of how you create this image. You either start from closest to you and then you spread out to furthest from you, or you start furthest from you and then you bring it narrowly in to closest to you. If I am describing this marker, I may start to describe it from top to bottom, right? I may describe all of the colors before I start describing the form. But you can't just start describing things haphazardly. You have to organize your description so that the person can create the image. It's like building a chair, right? You have to start from the form, and then you build yourself up to the finished product. And that is how visual imagery works in the mind. So as you describe what you see, there is a way in which you describe. You describe furthest to nearest, nearest to furthest, top to bottom, or you pick out the specific elements, whether you want to describe first color, state, form, etc. Everybody understand visual imagery? So Kenila, describe something for me and let's guess what it is. Something quick. Kenila, describe it. Use words to describe it.
It is pink.
It is pink, so that's color, so she's starting with color. It has decorative pieces, so she's talking about the state. You can see that there are decorations or embellishments on it. It is unisex, so she's describing the quality. And it's a crock, so we can use the specific noun of the thing. So based on everything that you have described, I can envision what it is. That's visual imagery. Olfactory imagery describes what we smell. So you walk into a place, you have to describe the smell of the place if the smell is important, right? You can get an idea whether it is clean or it is untidy, whether it is welcoming, if it is full and stuffy and all of that, if it is... You understand describing of smell. Now, when you're describing smells, there are specific words for smell. Have you ever been somewhere and somebody asks, what kind of flavor air freshener all they have? Flavor has to do with taste, right? Scent has to do with smell. So you can't have a flavor air freshener, right? So you have to make yourself au fait with certain words that are associated with scents. Now, when you smell a good scent, that is an aroma. When you smell a bad scent, that is an odor. Right? That's why we have deodorant and not the aromatics. Right? We have aromatics for like incense and the aroma, the aromatics, and that's good scents. But odor, deodorizers, and so on, bad scents. Right? So familiarize with different words that are associated with good scents and bad scents. And then we can actually label different scents. Like, you know what fresh linen smells like. You know what sea breeze smells like, right? So how would you describe the smell of this classroom? Sweaty? Okay. I would describe it as a little stuffy and dusty. Dusty, yes. Yeah. Because of the machines and the cupboards and all of that, you know, it's dusty. But that's expected. Because again, it is not a living area. If I tell you describe your kitchen or describe your bedroom now, you can't tell me, oh, it smells like jasmine and patchouli. You understand? Right. Auditory imagery describes what you hear. So when you're describing what you hear, this is mainly dealing with a lot of onomatopoeia and dealing with a lot of sounds, things associated with sounds like clanking, dings, clicks. You understand? There are words that convey sound, onomatopoeia. Once you get a good vocabulary of these sound words, you can describe any sound that you hear. And then you enhance them by using either adverbs or adjectives. Right? Tactile imagery. Now this describes what we feel. Now if you notice, all of these are senses, right? See, smell, hear. Feel. Tactile imagery deals with what you feel through touch. Right? And I differentiate feel and feel. Because there's another type of imagery that deals with a different kind of feel. Do you know we feel two different ways? We can feel something physically with our body, but we also feel things emotionally. So you separate the two different types of feels. So the one is describing things like textures and temperatures. So you can describe the texture of the cloth of an outfit. Or you can describe the texture of a bed. Right? You can describe the temperature of a room, whether it is hot, whether it is breezy. Right? You can describe temperatures, you can describe textures. And the same way you describe your visual imagery, the things that you see, is the same way you're going to describe texture. So if something is coarse and sharp, you will understand the format in which you're describing those textures and the temperature, right? Mm-hmm. The next one, gustatory imagery. Now, if you can't remember gustatory, just remember when you have gastro, it deals with the gut. Gustatory imagery. I have had students tell me gustatory imagery, they forget the S, but just remember the S. Gustatory imagery, it describes with things that are associated with taste. Right? Taste. So things that are savory, spicy, sweet, sour, bitter, all of those are descriptions of taste. Now, spicy is not a taste. Right? There is no receptors on your tongue for spice. You don't believe me? Okay, let me ask you a question. If I peel a piece of pepper and I rub my eye, what happened? You have taste buds in your eye? Why when you put sugar in your eye, it don't taste sweet in your eye? Right? But it burn your eye, right? When you eat pepper and then you go to the bathroom, what happened? You have taste buds down there? Okay. So spicy is actually an allergic reaction to the toxins in the pepper. Just like how nettle stings, spices are stinging of the toxins from the pepper. But we associate it with flavor still because people associate that specific response of the tongue with spicy. So you can have savory, which is a mixture of like salty and different textures, like maybe oil and different things on your tongue. So chicken is savory because it has the oil and it has the salt and all the different spices. And then it has sour. Well, we know what sour is. Bitter. Right? So we understand all salty. Yes, we can taste salt and so on. So gustatory imagery, you already know what that is. Yes, please. Oily would be a taste, yes. Oily could also be tactile, it can be a texture. Yes. Kinesthetic imagery and organic imagery. I have some green words associated with them. Let's break that down. Kinesthetic imagery. When you hear kinesthetic, what you hear? What you associate with kinesthetic? Kinetic energy. Very good, Cornelia. Very good. So kinetic energy has to do with stored up potential of movement, right? That is what kinesthetic imagery is. It is describing the aesthetic of movement. So that is why it describes motion. And you notice I have motion in red because I also have emotion here, right? So the energy that you describe that is moving. So words like swirling, kinesthetic imagery will always have a gerund. Gerund are words that end in ing because it is describing movement, right? So swirling, texting, sitting, driving, jumping, springing, whirling, twirling, speeding. All of those are kinesthetic imagery because they're describing a type of energy that is in motion and the potential of motion, the beauty of motion. And you hear me put this word mimesis here. When you look at the word mimesis, what do you see? Mime. What does a mime do? Kinda. They make movements and they tell a story in the movement. You know, mimes, they have on the white face and the black and white, and then they do a set of...
They do things to it, so you just have the signs.
Right. If you ever play charades, you will know exactly what miming is. You know what charades is? Okay, let's play a game of charades. Guess what I am doing? One word.
Driving.
How did you know driving? The movement, right? So I did the movement and then you said the word. And what is the word? Isn't it a gerund?
Yeah.
Driving, right? Okay, let's do one more. Just one, 3 words.
Playing violin.
Thank you very much. Playing a violin. So I did the action and you were able to get it in 3 words. Playing a violin. So I want you to look at kinesthetic imagery as a description of movement. So the same way you put words to my action, I want you to put words to whatever action. And the reason why mimesis is here, when you are telling a story, whereas these 5 types of imagery help to enhance the imagination of your reader, kinesthetic imagery drives the plot. It gets the story moving. So without kinesthetic imagery, your story will be stagnant. So I see a banana tree. I smell the grass. I taste a piece of banana. It's sweet and nice. The ground is a little wet because rain come last night and I can feel the sharpness of the grass under my toes. All of that, I have just used all of those imagery. Where my story going? Nowhere. But then when I say, I step forward and I move towards the back of that is me stepping forward. I am stepping. Right? So the story now is moving because now something is going to happen, movement. So when you look at kinesthetic imagery, it is responsible for the movement of the plot, which we call mimesis, the miming action. Now, organic imagery is the next part of the story, which focuses on what you feel, but not feeling as in what you touch, but what you feel emotionally. And if you look at this word emotion, what you see in there too? Motion, no? Right. So emotion would be your energy, internal energy, your feelings in motion versus motion here, which is just regular motion. Now, why is it important for you to have impressionistic? Now, whereas kinesthetic imagery focus on the mimesis of the story, the organic imagery focuses on the impressionistic narrative of the story. What is the impressionistic narrative? It says in the word, impression. So when you're trying to convey something to somebody, you want to impress them, right? Not impress them as in make them like you also. Impress as in impress upon them the same emotion that you're feeling. So when I tell a story, I don't just tell them a story. And so, I went on the road and this crazy man asked me for $5 and I tell him no. And he tell me about my mother and all kind of thing. You're waiting to hear what it is, right? But if I say, Anto girl, me go on the road. And this crazy man is think like, wow, come up to me, come ask me for $5. I don't have money for give. I tell him I don't have any money. Hello, he man reach out. What is the reason why we put all of that emotion and emphasis and we use... Right. So because I want Antonio to feel the level of disgust and disrespect that I felt. So I embellish it with my emotion. I use impressions. Right? And people say, it's how they like the impression. What is that? You're trying to convey something to somebody. So the impressionistic narrative is what is responsible for our readers feeling the emotion we want them to feel as we go through the story. Remember, we said the emotion creates the effect. Remember when we spoke about my traumatizing experience with Final Destination? How I am so fearful of driving behind trucks? Same thing. You have to create that level of impression, that level of emotional response in your reader for your story to make sense. How many of you have watched Passion of the Christ? How many of you get baptized after you all watch Passion of the Christ? You know how many people get baptized after watching Passion of the Christ?
You feel that Christ come out and you get scared.
Yes, when they look at the amount of torture and torment, they say, oh Lord, forgive me. Yes, right? So when you create a story and you are able to put that emotion in your audience, that is where you impress upon them the lesson that you're trying to teach. So whereas all of these different types of imagery embellishes your story, as in it makes it nice for the imagination, the real imagery is with your kinesthetic imagery and your organic imagery. how you describe the movement of the story, and how you describe the feeling of the characters as they move through the story. Okay? So that is imagery. Come, let me write up all the homework. We're going to end the live because nobody on the live doing the homework. Well, roll up your eyes so far, it's going to be easy.